All right, good morning, afternoon, whatever the case may be. We're going to go through this study guide. I told you to skip question 1. Yeah, let's just skip number 2. Blank is used to find a range of reasonable values used to estimate the population parameter based on a sample statistic. Let's see, focus there. All right, so let's see. Let me get a pen here. So number 2. The answer to this, to find a reasonable value, that's the whole reason why we actually come up with the margin of error. The margin of error allows people to kind of use the sample and say how close is it to the population parameter. Okay, remember, a parameter involves the entire population of something. And most of the time we don't have the capacity or ability to actually find a parameter, because you need everybody, and so you rely on a statistic to tell you about the population, okay, to tell you about the parameter. So that's why we take sample. We want to know how off are we to this, and that's what the margin of error does. All right, number 3, a blank involves, someone's calling me, I don't know who that is. A blank involves applying a treatment to some group or groups and measuring the effects of the treatment. Well, that's exactly what a scientific experiment is. All right, remember you got the two groups. I almost dropped the book. 4, we skipped that. That's null hypothesis, and that's actually for another type of class. We won't do that. It was the last section. Sometimes we skip the last section of each of our units here. Blank can be answered by collecting many pieces of information or data and summarizing the data. Okay, so what can be answered is a statistical question. All right, and then 6, a blank counts how many standard deviations of value standard deviations of data value is from the mean, and that's exactly what a z-score is. Okay, remember a z-score of 0 means you actually are the mean. All right. Okay, so 7. How many days are there in September? Is that actually a statistical question? No, you don't need to take a sample for that. You need to just look at a calendar. So the answer to that one is no. 8, do football coaches generally get paid more than swimming coaches? Well, take a sample. So go, you're going to have to ask around, and that absolutely is a statistical question. Number 9, explain how to determine if a quantity is a statistic or a parameter. And that's what I was kind of alluding to before. A statistic is information that you can glean off of a sample of the population, right? And if you randomize that sample, your ability to get a picture of the bigger population is going to be more accurate. The more people you sample, the closer you get to an actual clear and accurate picture of what that population actually is. And that's what you guys did with your survey. You're taking a randomized sample of roughly 50 people, and you're hoping, and you're going to be pretty close to kind of getting an idea of what the rest of the population is all about. So you guys perform statistic to estimate a parameter. All right. Number 10, the statistical variable is, what does this thing change? You guys measured all kinds of those variables on happiness, GPA, what grade you were in. Those are all variables because they change from one person to the next. So in this case, it's the number of televisions based on that picture. All right, we're going to move quickly over here. We're going to knock out up to 14 in this video. Describe what kind of statistical study you would conduct in order to answer each question. So number 11, if you were to find out the lifespan of giraffes affected by the number of offspring they produce, that would be an experiment. So 11 is an experiment. 12 is, do employees at a company want vending machines? Okay. Is it an observational study, experiment, or sample survey? An sample survey. They have to ask around. Explain the difference between an experimental group and a control group. All right, so a control group is the group that you don't touch, essentially. It's the control group that you want to behave naturally as if nothing is being applied to them. An experimental group is where you apply the change, and then you see what that changed group does compared to the control group. Okay, what do people act like normally? And then the experimental group is the group that has the change applied to them. Okay, the scientific method. All right, what sampling method is used below is the method bias. So every 10th person in line was chosen to fill out a survey. Now, if it was the first 10 people, then that would be a convenient sampling. This one is, looks like this is called a systematic. Okay, this is a systematic sampling. So remember, you want to look at the other three. What do you got? You got cluster sampling, convenient sampling, stratified sampling, systematic, and then self-sampling. I think there's something else with it, but self is kind of like it's like a volunteer sampling, and that's kind of like what you guys did when you did your survey. You tried to randomize it as much as possible, but ultimately you are relying on somebody kind of doing this on their own. There just has to be a volunteer. Okay. All right. So do know those 5, and in this case, that is a systemic. All right. We'll just actually stop.